Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, welcome. One pandemic, 2 years and 3 wedding days later to say I do. Congratulations, Nadia and John. On the 11th of February 1991, weighing 7 pounds 5 ounces, my beautiful daughter was born. She had the biggest brown eyes and an infectious smile, always smiling throughout her early childhood. Then came along the dreaded teens. It was a bit of a roller coaster, but we survived. One person that kept Nadia on her toes was her ray of sunshine. They had a very loving and strong relationship. He is looking down on you with happiness and pride. It has been a blessing to watch you grow into a beautiful young woman. Today, I look at the woman you have become. Strong, kind-hearted, thoughtful, caring and ambitious. All that I ever hoped for and everything I dreamed. I am so very, very proud of you, and I love you with all my heart. Oh, sorry, I haven't had a drink yet. It's now the time where I'm supposed to officially welcome John into our family. But the truth is, you've been a part of this family since the day we met you. We have had amazing holidays together and so many memories to cherish. I'd like to say to Catherine and Patrick, John has done you proud. I am so grateful to be your son-in-law. So, as you are now a married couple, always remember to be best friends. Work on each other's strengths, encourage each other, but most of all, listen. As Fatima would say, marriage is not a word, it's a sentence. And I'll leave you with a quote. It says, 2 golden rules to a marriage. 1, the wife is always right. 2, when you feel she is wrong, slap yourself and read number 1 again. And now, I'd like to hand you over to John, is it? Yeah, John.
It feels a little bit strange to be stood here today. I wasn't sure this day would ever arrive. Today was our 3rd attempt at getting married. Our first 2 attempts had to be postponed due to COVID. Today nearly didn't happen either. But when I suggested we postpone the wedding as a mark of respect to the Queen, Nadia wasn't too impressed. So here we are at last, 3rd time lucky, and it was worth the wait. Me and my wife want to thank every one of you for being here today. It really means so much to us that all of our friends and family are here to celebrate with us. There's a few people that I'd like to mention individually. I'd like to thank Nadia's mum, Mary. Thank you, Mary. Nadia is extremely close to her mum. As well as being Mary's daughter, she's also Mary's best friend. No offence, Fats. You're definitely Mary's 2nd most favourite daughter. Now, Mary and I have also become great friends, and I couldn't wish for a better mother-in-law. You're great crack, Mary, and you've always gone out of your way to make me feel at home. She's not perfect, though. She can sometimes be a little bit disorganised. as I learned on a trip to Paris a few years ago. As we were boarding the flight, I turned around and Mary's face was white. She'd just been told her passport was a year out of date. Mary looked at me and Nadia and said, "I brought the wrong passport." So we decided that me and Fatima, Nadia's sister, would get on the plane and fly to Paris, and Nadia and Mary would go back to Mary's house and look for a new passport. And as we were taxiing down the runway, about to take off, I phoned Nadia to get the latest developments. She put me on the phone to Mary, and Mary said, "We're in a taxi onto mine. I'm sure my new passport is in the safe." I said, "That's great, Mary. Why do you sound so nervous?" And Mary said, "I need the keys to get into the safe." "Okay, Mary, do you know where the keys are?" "Yes, I do." "Great. Where are they, Mary?" "They're in my suitcase," which is on the plane. Now, fortunately, the new passport wasn't in the safe, which would be a sensible place to keep it. It was in a cupboard in the kitchen. So Nadia and Mary made their way to Paris, and it's for reasons like that, Mary, that I love you even more. So I'd like to raise a glass. I'd like to toast my new mother-in-law. To Mary. I'd also like to thank my own mum and dad, Catherine and Patrick. I'm very blessed to have you as my parents. You taught me the importance of hard work and resilience, and you instilled in me a love of reading. You've set a great example for how to have a long and happy marriage. Now, as many of you know, my parents are very proud of their Irish heritage, and both descend from large rural Irish families. So they were very happy when I moved back to the old country 10 years ago for work. And they're delighted that I've married Nadia, a strong Irish woman, who they love very much. And I know they're going to be over the moon, Nadia, when we continue the Irish Catholic tradition of having 7 or 8 children. And we put them to work on our farm. So I'd like to toast my mum and dad to Catherine and Patrick. I'd like to thank Nadia's bridesmaids. Fatima, the maid of honour, who is Nadia's sister, Danielle, Nadia's good friend, and Saiv, Nadia's cousin. You all look very beautiful. I'm sure everyone would agree. I know Nadia thinks the world of all of you, and she's very grateful for all of the help that you've given her. Not just today, getting Nadia ready, settling her nerves, but you've been hugely instrumental in planning the wedding, which has taken up lots of your time, given we've been planning it for about 4 years. Word of advice for anyone not yet married: the longer you plan for it, the more expensive it gets. That's my experience, but I've made my peace with the cost now. I actually don't really ever mention it, do I? I never talk about it. I never say anything. And I certainly don't hold the bridesmaids responsible. Anymore. I'd also like to thank my ushers. My good friend Dave, who I met when I moved to Ireland in my late 20s, and my older brother Patrick, who I've known all of my life. Now, when we were younger, we didn't always get on. But even though you used to tease me relentlessly and subject me to your best wrestling moves, you are still a great friend, Dave. And you made those first few years in Ireland very enjoyable. Patrick, you're a wonderful brother, and I know you'd do anything for me. You've both been a great help over the last 48 hours, so thank you. And of course, I'd like to thank my best man, Gareth. I met Gareth 15 years ago when I started at William Hill, my first proper job. He was a mentor to me then, and he's been a great friend ever since. I've learned a huge amount from him, both professionally and personally. And he's been key in the build-up to the wedding. He organised my stag do. We went to Prague, which I'm sure everyone is famous for its well-preserved castles, Gothic cathedrals, and lively art scene. And these were the staple of our weekend's activities. He's given me advice on my speech and not allowed me to have any say in his. And he's flown over from Spain with his wife and our good friend Serena to be here for the week of the wedding. Gareth, you've been a great friend, and I really hope that I'm still saying that after your speech. I'd also like to raise a glass to someone who isn't here today, Nadia's grandfather, Ray. So Ray really was like Nadia's dad, and he sadly passed away a few years ago. I got to know Ray late in his life, and he was a gentleman. I know how proud he was of Nadia and how happy he'd be to see her getting married today. So I'd like to raise a glass to Ray. Last but not least, I want to thank my beautiful wife, Nadia. So Nadia and I met in Dublin 9 years ago. We met on a night out in a nightclub called The Palace. Now, The Palace was a bit of a kip, and it's since closed down. It was a sort of place you'd only go if you didn't know Dublin very well, or you were too drunk to get in anywhere else. I didn't know Dublin very well. It wasn't Nadia who was too drunk, though, to get in anywhere else. It was her friend, Sarah Coughlin, who is here today. So I'd like to raise a glass to Sarah. So as a result of my inexperience and Sarah's inebriation, we both found ourselves in the palace, started talking, and we hit it off. We swapped numbers, and the rest is history. Since then, we've moved in together, we've travelled together, we've made great friends together, and I can't imagine life without you, Nance. It's not been without its ups and downs. Like all couples, we've had the occasional fallout. Most of them have been about the cost of this wedding. I don't really mention it, though. I never really talk about it, do I? I never talk about how much it costs. And I've made my peace with that now. So joking aside, Nadia's done a fantastic job planning the wedding. She's done about 95% of what needed to be done. She's thought of absolutely everything, and I'm sure you'll agree it's paid off. Thank you, Nadia. So we started dating after meeting in the palace, and early in our relationship, it was obvious that we were in it for the long haul and would end up getting married. Some of the reasons why I knew I wanted to marry Nadia. She's fiercely loyal. She always has my back. She's determined, completing a degree and her finance qualifications, all while working full-time. She's funny, even when she doesn't mean to be. And of course, she's beautiful. Talk about punching above your weight. And importantly, Nadia, you can put up with me. And I know that's not always easy. So I'd like to end on a poem. Don't worry, I didn't write it myself. This was a poem that my mum shared with me, and I think it's very fitting. It's by a poet called Seamus Heaney. Masons, when they start upon a building, are careful to test out the scaffolding. Make sure that planks won't slip at busy points. Secure all ladders, tighten bolted joints. And yet, all this comes down when the job's done, showing off walls of sure and solid stone. So if, my dear, there sometimes seems to be old bridges breaking between you and me, Never fear, we may let the scaffolds fall, confident that we have built our wall. I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming and have a fantastic time. Thank you.
Right, guys, I'm Gareth. I'm the best man. It's been like walking a tightrope waiting for this wedding. Everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong, and then I went and dropped the rings in the church. In all seriousness, I want to say what a massive honour it is to be stood up in front of you all in this great country of Ireland. I thought you were allowed this great country of Ireland. And you know what? I've done my homework. I did my homework, and I looked through the history books, and I found out that this village, Maynooth, and this house in which we're all sat, was once home to the famous Geraldine and Fitzgerald family. And they were important guys, right? Back in the Anglo-Norman times, they used to make all the decisions on behalf of the country. They were the real deal. And I know the Anglo-Norman times left a massive impression and a mark on this country that exists to this very day. So I was extremely relieved when John chose me, a Welshman, to be his best man, and not some of the English candidates who were on his list. Sorry, guys. And I think it's an intellectual crowd. We've had quotes, we've had poems. Well, I'm going to give you a line from the greatest writer of them all. He's a Welshman. His name was Dylan Thomas. And he said, "I hold a beast, an angel, and a madman in me." And I think the same could be said about John. Let's start with madman. I first met John, he said 15 years ago. I think it was more like 16 or 17 years ago. I was on the William Hill trading floor in Leeds, surrounded by industry veterans. I was a young man myself. Some of them were sat in the table over there. And we all wore suits in those days. I don't know why. I think we thought we were the madmen. And then this kid walks in, the door's a bit like that, and we all looked round, and there's this little skinny kid, baggy top man suit, polished shoes, briefcase under his arm. He'd had his first shave the night before. I could still see the shaving cuts. And I thought one of the boys had brought one of their kids in. You know when it's like an inset day, they call them, no school, and you can't get a sitter, and you can't get a day off work, and you think, oh shit, I'm gonna have to bring them in for me with work. You know, it'll only be the day, and you stick them in the corner. You give them an iPad. You stick on Peppa Pig. You give them a carton of Capri Sun, and you come back 8 hours later. Well, we didn't. We stuck him in the corner by a guy called John Price. He's not here, but we stuck him by John Price. We didn't put Peppa Pig on the telly. We put on the snooker. And Goy, I've never heard a boy ask so many questions. Why did you make that price change? How would you price this frame? What shot do you think he's going to make here? Gareth, why did you back Marco Fu at 66-1? With every answer, John scribbling down notes into his little notepad. By the end of his shift, that notepad was like a Bible, containing everything that he'd learnt. And look, let's give him credit. 15, 16, 17 years later, he's now the managing director of trading of one of the biggest sports betting operations in the world. So give him a round of applause. You know, I was a young lad, but I saw something in him. He called me a mentor. I'm flattered, but I did see something in him. A natural appetite to learn, a thirst for asking questions, and clearly very, very intelligent. And then we'd go out to Leeds. We'd go out to Leeds City Centre at night, and he'd turn into Morrissey when we were doing the karaoke. That's John the Madman. We'll get him up tonight and he can do the song. Next, John the Beast. Numerous stories here, and Mrs. Carroll, I can't tell them all. I promised you I wouldn't. So I'm going to settle on one. When John was living up in Madrid, I don't know why, we booked the poshest, most expensive upmarket restaurant on a Saturday night. Picture the scene, small, dark, intimate venue. Madrid's elite, all busy dining. We arrived later than most, and the only light in the venue was the light plonked on each dinner table. Celebrities adorned the wall. Banderas, King of Spain, Nadal, Ronaldo, Carroll. And John did what he does. he orders his 3-course meal. Always a 3-course meal. Not so much these days, but he started off with garlic bread, and the garlic bread came in a basket containing foil. He eats the garlic bread in under 60 seconds. He dumps down the foil. And this is no lie. He picks up the bread basket and lobs it over his head. It flies across the restaurant and lands on somebody's table, and I'm aghast in astonishment. Main courses came and went, and John orders profiteroles for dessert. When he finally came up for air, his face is completely covered in chocolate. He decides the bathroom is too far away, so he dips his silk serviette in the ice bucket, takes out the bottle of wine, he swirls his silk serviette about, and he comes up and he wipes all the chocolate off his face. The chocolate's gone. By this point, John's face is dripping with ice water. And then he pulls the dining cloth from under the table, drinks go everywhere, and he bends down and he slowly dries his face. By that point, the waiters had seen enough, and they sent us back out onto the Madrid streets, cold Madrid streets, with our tails between our legs, and that's John the Beast. That's the cleanest story I could tell you guys. And John the Angel. I'd always knew he'd marry an Irish girl. You know, John lived in Madrid for about 2 or 3 years, and I live in the south of Spain, and I used to get the high-speed Renfe up, 700 miles north. The train would do 250 kilometers an hour. I'd be there in 2 hours. I'd be excited at the prospect of seeing Europe's biggest hotspots, the Bernabeu, home to one of the most famous football teams in the world, Real Madrid. Mercado San Miguel, where Madrid's elite come, this indoor market, and they congregate to drink and eat. It's an amazing atmosphere. Prado Museum, home to some of the finest artwork in the world. But we'd always just sit in an Irish bar. We were in the Dubliner in Madrid. We were in the Dubliner, and I was with Mark Steele, and it was a particular Friday night, and we were waiting for John to finish work. He was always late, always got work to do. So we're there, and admittedly, I'm slightly worse for wear. John walks into the bar, midnight on a Friday night. And I'm not telling you fibs, I cry. I don't know why. I was emotional and perhaps a little bit proud of him. And then his very next move was to up sticks and move to Dublin, which he now calls his home. And that's where he met Nadia. I didn't think she existed at the start. I used to hear loads about her, and I'd come over a couple of times from Spain, and I never got to meet her. Used to think she was his alter ego. But then I finally did meet her, and I understood what the fuss was about. Nadia, you're an absolute credit to John. And John, yeah, he might be beast, he might be madman, but here's the angel in him. He's super, super loyal and committed, and I know he'll do you proud. And he said he was punching above his weight there. Yeah, Nadia's beautiful. But in an attempt to try and get to Nadia's level, he had a hair transplant for this wedding, folks. He had a hair transplant. He's done his teeth. and he got into the shape of his life. I think he told me yesterday he's 73 kilos. And that, Nadia, was all for you, nothing to do with him. And then he obviously met his new family here in Ireland, Mary and Fatima, and I know he's so very proud of his new family in Ireland. And I never see John without him mentioning the family that he left behind in Yorkshire. Mr. and Mrs. Carroll sat to my left, the twin sisters and the amazing Patrick. I don't know where Patrick is, who's done a brilliant job as usher over this past few days. That's John, our angel. Now, I was first best man for my brother 26 years ago. I was 16 years of age in the South Wales valleys. My brother had just come back from the Gulf War. I hadn't seen him for 4 years. And I proudly stood up and I told him I was a man of the world, and I proceeded to give the newlyweds some marital advice. I told them marriage is like a pair of tights. It depends on what you put into it. They didn't last, but I've updated my advice. I'm married 4 years myself now, and I'm much, much wiser. So John, Nadia, if ever either of you call each other, make sure you answer. When you're together, keep your phones away and appreciate each other. You're both fiercely ambitious and hardworking, and I know you're going to go on and make a family. Life becomes bloody stressful. I'm sure the parents can testify to that. Never take out your personal stress on each other. And John, buy a king-size bed, or at least get an extra duvet, because trust me, they hog it all. My wife, Serena, and I are never happier than when we're out spending time with the both of you. You're like a brother and sister to us, and this is one of the proudest moments of my life, being able to serve you as best man. So hopefully I've done you guys proud. It's over to you now to make each other proud. So can we just finish up by offering a toast to the new Mr. and Mrs. Carroll, John and Nadia, the new husband and wife. I don't mean to extend my speech by a couple of minutes, but a pigeon landed on my shoulder literally just before I stood up, and I got this card which I'll give you, and a message, and I'll read it out. Well, Nadia and John only took 5 years of shite to eventually tie the knot. To think back to the times when we would play horses out the back garden, Nadia, with sweeping brushes, and bully poor Laura, Fatima, and Sarah. And now you're being whisked away. I'm so happy for you. And I wish you every bit of love, happiness to whatever your future brings. I know John will always look after you well. I hope you have the most amazing day. Aaron and I wish we could have been there, but until we meet again, hopefully sooner rather than later, enjoy your special day. Lots of love, Emma and Aaron.